What happens when a company that's, generating like $2 billion a month is built on a foundation so utterly fragile that just a single hollowed out block of code could bring the entire empire crashing down?
Right. It's a terrifying thought.
I mean, you look at the astronomical wealth of the AI boom and it feels completely invincible, but then you look beneath the surface and, well, the vulnerabilities are just terrifying.
Yeah. And the thing is, the headlines focus almost exclusively on the money, right? The valuations, which, I mean, that paints a very lopsided picture of what is actually happening in the tech landscape right now.
Exactly.
Because the real story, the one that dictates the security of the devices you rely on every single day, is that friction. That friction between this unprecedented growth and an incredibly brittle digital foundation.
So true. And today we are pulling apart a pretty dense but fascinating tech update from Kinsoft Tech Talks. This is dated April 6th, 2026.
It's a great source for this.
Yeah, it really is. And our mission in this deep dive is to unpack this specific briefing to help you, the listener, understand this profound dual nature of our current reality.
Right, because we are basically witnessing this historical reality-bending growth that is, it's completely masking some serious foundational cracks.
Okay, let's unpack this. Starting with the sheer scale of the money. Because, I mean, the numbers Kinsoft reports coming out of OpenAI are almost difficult to process.
Oh, they are staggering.
They just closed a record funding round of $122 billion. I mean, billion. With a B.
Yeah, which pushes their valuation past $850 billion.
Wow.
And, to put that in an economic context, if that valuation were a country's GDP, it would comfortably place them in the top 25 economies on the entire planet.
That is just wild. And the usage metrics totally back up that valuation. The briefing cites around $2 billion in monthly revenue.
$2 billion a month.
Yeah, and close to 1 billion weekly users, which, let's actually visualize that for a second.
Please do, because it's hard to grasp.
Right. So 1 billion weekly users means that roughly 1/8 of the entire global population is interacting with this single company's tools every single week.
It's just massive.
Like, if you walk down a crowded street anywhere in the world, statistically, 1 out of every 8 people you pass is actively plugged into this specific ecosystem.
Wow. Yeah.
It has moved entirely past being, just a popular software tool.
Yeah.
It's becoming a foundational layer of human communication and workflow.
What's fascinating here is the speed of that integration. Because traditional tech giants, like your social media monopolies or your legacy search engines, they took decades of slow, iterative growth to reach 1 billion active users.
Decades.
Exactly. But OpenAI has compressed that timeline into a fraction of the space.
Right.
I mean, when you are looking at $2 billion in monthly revenue, you're no longer looking at early adopters trying out a novelty.
Definitely not. That's real sustained usage.
You are looking at global systemic reliance. Entire industries are routing their core daily operations through a singular choke point.
But I'm still stuck on the $122 billion funding round. Like, when a software company takes in that much liquid capital, what are they even buying?
Right.
They aren't buying office chairs, right? They're buying physical infrastructure. They're buying entire energy grids and massive server farms just to keep the lights on for 1 billion users.
Yeah, and that is the exact mechanism driving the broader market chaos right now. The computing power required to serve 1 billion users generative AI is it's staggeringly expensive.
I can only imagine.
OpenAI is basically building a gravitational anomaly. The sheer mass of their capital and their compute power warps the entire tech ecosystem around them. Because if you are a legacy tech giant, you cannot simply sit on the sidelines while a competitor captures 1/8 of humanity.
Right, which means the older companies have to pivot.
Yeah,
And that pivot has a pretty brutal human cost.
it really does.
The Kinsoft source highlights a glaring example of this. Oracle, which is an absolute foundational giant in the database world, just executed its largest ever layoffs.
Yeah, that was huge there.
We are talking about an estimated 20,000 to 30,000 jobs cut. And the explicit stated reason for firing basically the population of a small town is to pay for their AI build-out.
It is a ruthless reallocation of capital.
Yeah.
Moving it from human resources to physical compute infrastructure.
So what does this all mean? I mean, the Kinsoft update notes that after Oracle laid off tens of thousands of people, the market actually rewarded the stock.
Yeah, the stock went up.
I really struggle with the logic there. How do we live in a reality where Liquidating the livelihoods of 30,000 human beings makes a company supposedly more valuable in the eyes of investors.
Well, the market operates on cold mechanics,
Hmm.
and it is currently signaling a massive shift in how it values different types of corporate assets.
Okay, break that down for me.
In the simplest terms, investors are looking at operating expenses, which are, the ongoing costs of paying human salaries.
Right.
And they're weighing that against capital expenditures, which is the money spent on physical assets like AI data centers and GPUs.
Ah, the hardware.
Exactly. Right now, the market views those massive data centers as the only viable lottery ticket for future survival.
So investors are essentially looking at Oracle and saying, well, we prefer you own machines that might build the future rather than paying the people who are building your present.
That is the harsh reality. The market sees OpenAI's $850 billion valuation and demands that every other company build the infrastructure to compete in that arena.
Wow.
So when Oracle announces they are slashing their operating expenses to hoard capital for GPUs, Wall Street applauds the move as necessary for survival.
That's just wild.
It really is a stark reminder that this era of unprecedented wealth generation is happening concurrently with massive, disruptive human displacement within the exact same sector.
It honestly feels like watching a company cannibalize itself.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
But, while companies like Oracle are shedding massive amounts of human capital just to afford centralized warehouse-sized AI server farms, the technology itself is doing something entirely counterintuitive.
Oh, absolutely.
It's shrinking.
And this is arguably the most pivotal development in the Kinsoft briefing. The push toward massive centralization is it's creating an equal and opposite reaction toward extreme localization.
Right. According to the update, Google just released Gemma 4. The source describes this as a family of, quote, open-weight models that are small enough to run fully offline on a smartphone.
On a phone, not a massive server farm.
Exactly. The Kinsoft briefing explicitly states local AI is getting genuinely usable. Here's where it gets really interesting, because to me, this feels like an echo of the late 1970s.
Oh, you mean the transition from the mainframe to the personal computer?
Yes. Back then, computing meant these massive, room-sized, incredibly expensive mainframes that only governments and massive corporations could afford.
You couldn't just have one in your house.
Right. You had to send your data to them, wait for it to process and get the answer back. Then suddenly the personal computer put that processing power directly onto your desk.
A total paradigm shift.
And we are watching the exact same trajectory play out with artificial intelligence. We are moving from relying on OpenAI's billion-dollar cloud servers to having a highly capable intelligence running directly on your phone, completely disconnected from the internet.
It's incredible.
But I do need to ask you to clarify a term here. The briefing calls Gemma 4 an open-weight model. I know what open source software is, where anyone can look at the code, but what exactly is an open weight?
Yeah, it is a crucial distinction because in traditional software, the code is a set of explicit instructions written by a human.
Like a recipe.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if you make it open source, anyone can read those instructions. But an artificial intelligence, like a large language model, isn't just a list of instructions.
Okay, so what is it then?
It is a massive neural network that has learned by processing mountains of data. The weights are the mathematical values of the connections within that network.
Oh, I see. So the code is just the empty skeleton, but the weights are the actual brain. It's the accumulated knowledge the AI gained during its training.
That is an excellent way to conceptualize it, actually.
Mm-hmm.
The code to run an AI is actually quite simple.
Really?
Yeah. The magic is in the weights, the billions of tuned parameters that dictate how the AI understands language and reasoning.
That makes so much sense.
So when Google releases Gemma 4 as an open-weight model, they aren't just giving developers the empty skeleton. They are releasing the fully trained brain, allowing anyone to download it, modify it, and run it locally on their own hardware.
Which fundamentally shifts the power dynamic.
Completely.
I mean, if you can run a highly capable AI offline on your phone, you don't need to send your private data up to a multi-billion-dollar server farm to get an answer.
And for you, the listener, this means absolute privacy. When you query a cloud-based model, your data leaves your device.
Right, it goes to their servers.
Exactly. But with a local open-weight model like Gemma 4, your personal information never has to traverse the internet. It decentralizes the intelligence.
That sounds like a huge win.
It is, however, as we embed these complex locally running systems deeper into our personal devices, the basic software components those systems rely on become an incredibly lucrative target.
Uh-oh. Which forces us to look at the darker side of this Kinsoft briefing.
Unfortunately, yes.
Because we've established that all of this incredible technology relies on a foundation of basic software building blocks. And the briefing details what it calls a nightmare scenario regarding those blocks.
And it really is a nightmare.
Attackers linked to North Korea executed a massive supply chain attack by placing a backdoor into a JavaScript package called Axios.
Axios, yeah.
And this isn't some obscure piece of software. Axios is one of the most widely used tools in the developer world, with over 100 million weekly downloads.
The scale of 100 million weekly downloads means this single package is embedded in the software of banks, hospitals, tech startups, and massive enterprises.
Wow. You know, to visualize how terrifying this is, imagine you are a construction company building a new skyscraper. You wouldn't forge your own steel beams from scratch or mix your own cement, right?
No, of course not. You buy them.
You buy those standardized building blocks from a trusted supplier. Well, software development works the same way. Developers don't write every single line of code from scratch. They use prepackaged blocks, like Axios, to handle standard, repetitive functions.
It saves time.
So what Kinsoft is describing here is the equivalent of discovering that the factory supplying the steel beams for every single new building in your city has been secretly hollowing them out and packing them with explosives before delivery.
That is a terrifying image.
And nobody noticed because the beams looked completely normal on the outside. But I have to push back here.
Okay, go ahead.
If Axios is open source and 100 million people are using it, how does a state-sponsored hacker just slip malicious code into it without anyone noticing? Shouldn't someone have seen the explosives inside the steel beams?
That's the logical question.
Yeah.
But if we connect this to the bigger picture, it exposes a massive vulnerability in how open source software is maintained.
How so?
It relies on the many eyes theory, the idea that because the code is public, bugs and malicious additions will be spotted quickly.
Right, because everyone is looking at it.
But the reality is that many of these foundational packages, even ones with 100 million downloads, are maintained by a handful of unpaid volunteers doing it in their free time.
Wait, seriously? Unpaid volunteers?
Yes. They are essentially burning out trying to manage an infrastructure the whole world relies on.
Oh my God.
And sophisticated attackers, like state-sponsored groups, prey on that burnout. They don't usually hack in and steal the code. They use social engineering.
And they manipulate people.
Exactly. They pose as helpful developers. They submit dozens of legitimate, helpful updates to the code over months, building trust with the exhausted maintainers.
Playing the long game.
Yes. Once they have earned the status of a trusted contributor, they slip in a seemingly innocuous update that actually contains an invisible backdoor.
Oh, wow. So the call is literally coming from inside the house.
Yep.
The maintainers themselves are tricked into approving the malicious code because they trust the person submitting it.
And that is why a supply chain attack is a nightmare scenario. You could have the most secure corporate network on the planet, protected by biometric locks and elite cybersecurity teams.
Fort Knox.
Right. But if the foundational building blocks you use to write your internal software were compromised at the source, all of those downstream defenses are completely useless.
Because the enemy is already inside.
The enemy is already inside your walls, smuggled in by your own developers. The briefing issues a very pointed warning here. Businesses must know their dependencies. You have to audit the building blocks you are bringing into your environment.
Now, if you are listening to this, it is very easy to compartmentalize that threat.
True.
You might think, well, I'm not an enterprise developer. I don't build JavaScript applications. A supply chain attack on Axios is a corporate problem, not a me problem.
Assuming immunity based on your technical expertise is a very dangerous posture in the current landscape.
Absolutely. And the Kinsoft briefing aggressively shatters that assumption, bringing the threat straight down from the enterprise server level directly to your personal laptop.
Yeah, this next part is wild.
They highlight a separate critical vulnerability. Apple recently had to patch a flaw in Spotlight, which is, the built-in search feature on Macs.
Right, the little magnifying glass.
Exactly. This flaw could expose files in a user's downloads folder. But the detail that the source flags as highly concerning is that it could expose cached AI data.
Cached AI data, yeah.
The update uses this as a direct command to keep your personal machines updated. But let's break down the mechanics of this. Why is our local AI leaving cached data lying around for a search bar flaw to expose in the first place?
Well, it comes back to how local models, like the ones we discussed with Google's Gemma 4,
Right.
actually operate on a personal device.
Okay.
To be useful, An AI assistant running on your phone or your Mac needs context.
Hmm.
It has to ingest your personal documents, your recent emails, and your private notes to formulate an intelligent answer.
Wow. So it's reading my life to help me manage my life.
Correct. But processing all that raw data requires massive amounts of computing power and battery life.
Makes sense.
To conserve resources, the system doesn't want to reread your entire hard drive every time you ask a question. So it creates a cache, a temporary, highly compressed memory bank of the intimate data it has recently processed.
Oh, I get it. It is leaving breadcrumbs of its thought process.
Exactly. And those breadcrumbs are pure, synthesized, highly sensitive information.
Which is terrifying if it gets exposed.
Yes. When a foundational everyday tool like Apple's Spotlight has a vulnerability that accidentally exposes those specific cache files, the stakes change dramatically.
Sure.
Keeping your operating system patched, as Kinsoft strongly advises, is no longer about stopping a generic virus from slowing down your web browser. It is about actively protecting the raw, intimate context that your local AI tools are constantly digesting in the background.
The paradigm of personal security has completely shifted. I mean, we used to worry about someone intercepting our credit card numbers.
Right.
Now we have to worry about a glitch in our desktop search bar accidentally exposing the private thoughts and unfinished documents we've been feeding to our local AI assistant.
Yeah.
As the technology becomes more personalized and integrated, the vulnerabilities become incredibly intimate.
It forces a total reevaluation of what we consider sensitive data on our personal devices.
It really does. Which brings this entire deep dive full circle. We started by looking at the dizzying astronomical heights of this tech boom.
The big numbers.
Right. OpenAI absorbing $122 billion to fuel a valuation that rivals national economies, demanding 1 billion users every single week.
Incredible scale.
And we explored the immense gravitational pull of that growth, looking at how Oracle liquidated tens of thousands of jobs just to afford the physical infrastructure to stay relevant, a ruthless calculation that the market actively rewarded.
We also examined the counter-movement, the democratization of that immense power through open-weight models like Gemma 4, which shrink the capabilities of a massive server farm down to a device that fits in your pocket and runs entirely offline.
But hovering above all of that incredible innovation is the sobering reality of a foundation it all sits on. We have state-sponsored actors playing the long game, using social engineering to slip invisible backdoors into universally trusted software blocks like Axios.
Right.
And we have everyday flaws in our personal operating systems threatening to expose the deeply intimate data our local AI models are constantly processing. It is a landscape of unparalleled technological power built on an undeniably fragile, invisible foundation.
Yeah. And as we wrap up, I really want to leave you with a final thought that connects these two realities.
Oh, what's that?
Well, we just learned that Axios, an open, trusted software building block used by millions, was successfully weaponized at its source.
Yes, the hollowed-out steel beams.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And at the same time, we are celebrating the arrival of open-weight AI models like Gemma 4. These models are essentially the new, incredibly complex building blocks that we are rushing to download directly to our personal phones.
Oh, I see where you were going with this.
The question we must ask ourselves is this. As these opaque, pre-trained AI models become the foundational dependencies of the next decade, how do we ensure they aren't hiding the exact same kind of invisible, state-sponsored backdoors?
Wow.
I mean, when the building block isn't just a few lines of readable JavaScript, but an incredibly dense neural network weighing gigabytes, how do we actually verify what is hidden inside the weights?
That takes the nightmare scenario and just amplifies it to an entirely new level.
It really does.
It perfectly echoes the final advice from the Kinsoft Tech Talks briefing. If you have never paused to ask yourself what is actually inside your software supply chain, today's the day to start asking. Absolutely.
We are all building on top of this solid gold skyscraper, but we need to remember the swamp underneath it. As you navigate this highly capable but deeply vulnerable digital landscape, take that advice to heart.
Stay patched.
Stay patched, stay skeptical, and never stop questioning what is actually hidden inside the tools you trust every single day.